Hello, good afternoon. My name is Martin Seman. I'm with the UN Department of Global Communications. Welcome to this press briefing on the second World Summit for Social Development, which kicks off next week in Doha, Qatar from 4 to 6 November. Today's briefing will set the stage for the summit, outlining its vision, priorities, and the critical role it will play in advancing the social dimension of sustainable development. I am pleased to have with us Annalena Baerbock, President of the 80th session of the General Assembly, and Her Excellency Alia bin Saif Al Thani, Permanent Representative of the State of Qatar to the United Nations. Ms. Baerbock, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining. It's an honor for us to brief you together for the Second World Summit for Social Development, taking place, as you hopefully know, from the 4th to the 6th November in Doha. And this is a very special moment because after 30 years. This is the second World Summit for Social Development, and also having a press briefing here today with the host country and the President of the General Assembly, underlining how important this social summit is for the United Nations, for the General Assembly, as it comes directly after our high-level week and perfectly suited in the 80th session, and therefore also the 80th anniversary of the United Nations. Because as we know, 30 years ago, world leaders underlined in Copenhagen that dignity, opportunity and inclusion must be at the heart not only of development, but at the heart of the United Nations, knowing that without social justice, there will never be long-lasting peace and security. They met 30 years ago in Copenhagen at a time when more than 1.3 billion people, so over a quarter of the world, lived in deep poverty, merely surviving instead of thriving. And we have made progress since then. For instance, in the 3 decades since Copenhagen, the share of people living in extreme poverty has fallen from roughly 30% of humanity to about 10% today. Yet, as we also know, within the 30 years, we have made special progress due to the 10 years ago adoption of the Agenda 2030, another milestone for social development, and also the strong push for our SDGs. Besides all these successes, still today, 30 years after Copenhagen and 10 years after the Agenda 2030, over 800 million people still live in extreme poverty. And these abstract numbers mean in reality that people ask themselves questions which most of us would never ask ourselves. Will I make the rent next month? Do I have to choose between school fees and groceries? What if a disaster strikes and in these hours we are thinking of the many people being hit by the Hurricane Melissa? What if the disaster strikes and everything is being destroyed? Will I stand alone or will somebody help me? Would I end homeless? Meanwhile, prices are rising faster than wages. Climate disasters are uprooting entire communities. So social development is not an abstract matter for few, but is the crucial question for all of us. Social development is not only a matter of principle, it is also the smartest investment we can make. When people have access to decent work, when children remain in school, when healthcare and basic services are secured, societies grow stronger. Economies gain confidence, trust in institutions is restored, and foundations of peace are reinforced. Therefore, it's a moment of celebration. Besides all the numbers, besides all the things we still have to delete, that in Doha, leaders will meet again to underline the purpose of Copenhagen, to act, and to bring forward solutions to reduce poverty once and for all, to expand universal social protection before crisis strikes, to create decent jobs for young people, and to ensure one of the newer topics in the social development, that technologies are included for everyone, that artificial intelligence opens pathways and opportunities not only for a few. So therefore, this summit will not only bring together, I'm really thankful also to the host country, how many heads of states and ministers have signed up. But in Doha, not only governments are coming together, but also the younger generation, civil society, businesses, and local leaders. The world is showing that we are not waiting, that we are not there for more promises, but that we are there for delivering. Delivering on the principles of Copenhagen, delivering on a just and fair world forever, and delivering on the promises we made 30 years ago at the first social summit, underlining in Doha again that we are better off together. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Her Excellency.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone, and it's a great pleasure, of course, to join Her Excellency, Madam President Annalena Baerbock, President of the General Assembly, to brief you on the upcoming Second World Summit for Social Development, which the State of Qatar will be proudly hosting from the 4th to the 6th of November in Doha. As host, of course, the State of Qatar is delighted to welcome the international community, more than 8,000 participants from member states, the United Nations, civil society, academia, the private sector, workers and employers, and youth, all coming together in Doha to recommit to social justice and put people at the center of sustainable development. As has been mentioned by Madam President, 30 years after Copenhagen, the Doha Summit offers a unique opportunity to renew our shared commitment to social progress and inclusion and to accelerate achievement of the SDGs. It is truly a defining moment for global social development. In convening this summit, Qatar reaffirms its long-standing commitment to social justice, inclusive development, and multilateral cooperation. From the 2008 Financing for Development Conference to UNCTAD 13 in 2012 and COP 18 in the same year, and as well at the UN Congress on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice in 2015 and LDC 5 in 2023, among many others. Doha has emerged as a symbol of dialogue and global solidarity by hosting these milestone moments for the United Nations. Qatar builds on that legacy by hosting the summit next week. At the heart of the summit will be the adoption, of course, of the Doha Political Declaration on Social Development. In this, I would like, of course, to thank Ambassador Sophie de Smet of Belgium and Ambassador Omar Hilal of Morocco, co-facilitators for the political negotiation process leading to the Second World Summit for Social Development, for their skillful leadership in guiding member states towards consensus on the declaration. A few highlights from the declaration, of course, for your information. Of course, it reaffirms the interlinked priorities of poverty eradication, full and productive employment and decent work for all, and social inclusion as essential to sustainable development. It underscores that social justice cannot exist without peace and security or without respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. It issues a clear call to action, recommitting governments to creating the conditions for social development for all. And importantly, it includes strong provisions on implementation, follow-up, and review. Dear colleagues, the State of Qatar will host a summit that is unique in both scale and ambition. Highlights will include the first leaders meeting of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty and the Doha Solutions Forum for Social Development, both designed to translate commitments into measurable actions. It will also include a high-level event on education as the new foundation of the new social contract with the participation of the Secretary General, and as well two major gatherings relating, of course, to the private sector forum and civil society forum will also feature prominently, underscoring the summit's inclusive and principled position on many, many major issues that the summit will deliberate on. We are especially proud of the strong engagement of civil society, the private sector, and youth, alongside governments and the United Nations entities. This broad participation will generate innovation, community-driven solutions, and we welcome the media, of course, whose role is crucial in bringing these stories out to the world. I'm very much confident that the summit will deliver hopeful and actionable commitments, and not just statements of intent, but real pledges of partnerships, implementation, and accountability. Thank you very much, and we look forward to an engaging discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We now open up the floor for members of the press. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam President and Madam Ambassador, for this press conference on behalf of ANCA. It's Valeria Robecco from ANSA Newswire. My question is, what do you expect as the first concrete steps that can come out from the summit? You know, like in which topics, development, or dossier? Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. And as I opened the 80th session of underlining that this is not a normal session, but that the United States and the United Nations are at the crossroads, this counts even more for this social summit. Because obviously not having met for 30 years, in between, we had the very important Agenda 2030, but also underlined that the social development issues, besides all the work of the United Nations, has not been so much in focus for heads of governments and heads of state. And therefore, the summit itself is a very unique and important message. The message that the world, the General Assembly, and this is maybe also important as a side note, because some are thinking this is a conference, but this is a General Assembly meeting, so that the General Assembly, and by that all the member states, are underlining, as Madam Ambassador has said, as I have said, that without social justice, there will be never lasting peace, but also never strong economic growth. And over the last 30 years, this discussion has changed, and I would say in a very important way. Many countries have always underlined that if you do not have sustainable growth, if we do not have regulation on markets, on finance, on investment, it's only a few who will benefit. And we have seen that, because over the last 30 years, there has been a very positive trend in, for example, ending poverty, but also with reducing unemployment rates. But if you look more into the details, there's also a bigger divide. The divide between regular jobs and unofficial jobs, but also the divide between different countries. We have countries where the unemployment rate for youth is more than half of the young generation. And this is a disaster for every country. So therefore, coming to your question, the concrete outcomes of this summit is less headlines and more action, more implementation. So bringing together actors who really can bring on the ground the investments which are important for the countries where youth unemployment is increasingly high. Bringing together investment into renewable energy and development is one of the outcomes. As underlined, education, making clear that without primary education for all, but also access for secondary education, the divide around the world will continue. So these concrete measures of bringing together those actors, which it needs, sometimes it's cooperations between member states, but very often it's also cooperation between investments, businesses, and the relevant countries, is a strong asset at this second summit.
3 questions from the front row. So I'll go with you in the middle first, and then the gentleman to your right, and then you. Please, for the online audience, just state your name and affiliation and who the question is for. Thank you.
Thank you. It's Pamela Falk from U.S. News and World Report. Thank you, Madam President, Madam Ambassador. It's good to see you both. My question is for the Ambassador. Your country's been in the news and a lot of diplomatic issues these days. Can you tell us about the role that Qatar will play in a multinational stabilization force in Gaza? There's been a lot of talk, if you wouldn't mind, in your national capacity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Of course, the focus today is on the summit and the proceedings. Is a very important moment for the United Nations and for the entire membership to engage in the most anticipated Second World Summit on Social Development. And it's a proud moment, as I said, for Qatar to host such an important summit. Again, building on what Madam President have said, the summit today is in itself creates the angle. The Doha political declaration and the alignment, the commitments, aligning the commitments of Copenhagen with today's challenges and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is key. And as well, to also answer partially your question, how will the summit as well create the linkage between how social justice cannot be attained in the absence of peace and security. And again, the summit is an important moment to address many areas, including areas relating to peace and security. The subject of Gaza will come within the context of the summit. There are many activities relating to the socio-economic component and situation in Gaza. Doha is very proud to use the summit as an opportunity to provide the platform to create the linkage between social development and the angle of peace and security. In particularly addressing your question, of course, Doha has been intensively engaged in the reaching of a ceasefire in Gaza. Our leadership has been highly engaged in this matter, and we very much look forward to what comes next. For us, what is important is to sustain the ceasefire and the suffering of the Palestinian people and supporting any effort in this regard, and we are very much engaged in the process in capitals and as well here in New York. And hopefully you will hear further aspects of the specific question you have asked about in the coming days and weeks. Thank you so much.
Of time as well, if we can focus on the questions on the summit itself, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President, Madam Ambassador. A common theme kept repeating itself in bringing social justice is eradication of poverty, together with the expansion to education and healthcare. This is becoming really fundamental. 10 years after 2015 and the passing of the SDGs, and with the numbers projecting in, I don't think we're going to be meeting those goals. In hindsight, were the SDGs too optimistic, and that the world is facing the crisis that they cannot meet it? Although I wish to add that since Copenhagen till today, poverty was 30%. Now it's 10%. But still, we see it more prevalent, of course, in areas where there is armed conflicts and so. What's your view and what's your message to the summit this time around about trying to meet those goals, and what if we can't? Thank you.
To answer very short and undiplomatic, then we fail, and this will be a disaster. For the people suffering, because if you look a bit more detailed in number, even if you would say we have come down really with hunger and poverty, but 800 million is still 800 million. Imagine all of us. We wake up in the morning and already don't know how to give food to our children at night. And this happens every day, over and over again. So this is why the SDGs were more than a pledge. And as they are the implementation of rights and the implementation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights for all, what other goals should there been instead of saying these rights belong to everybody. We cannot say, well, these rights are only for a quarter of our world. So the goal always have to be that we are delivering on human rights for everybody, no matter if you're born in the global north or the global south, in the east or the west, no matter if you're rich or a poor family, no matter which religion you belong to. And therefore, this summit is more important than ever, because obviously some people are questioning whether this Universal Declaration of Human Rights are still valid. So this is a regathering behind not only the SDGs, but the basic principles even behind the SDGs. And yes, in some parts we have to make more effort, but thanks that you mentioned already COVID. Because I think it's a very, very wrong way if we are saying we failed and we are not looking for the resources. In some parts, it has been political decision-making, which we can change. In others, like a pandemic, unfortunately, nobody could change that. So now saying giving up on education goal, for example, while we were very, very successful, but then COVID came in, it means now we have to double our efforts again. And then we have to really name and face the hurdles and challenges which are still there. If we are staying with education, if we are having now a country where the forces in the countries are taking the rights of women and girls, the right of education, we have to name that, and we have to work concretely on that one, that also girls after 6th grade have a right of education in Afghanistan. On other cases, for example, we have to make very clear why there are hurdles for education, and then the international community can help. So if we're having here again a budget debate on cutting the budget of the UN, this is highly connected to the SDGs. If we are cutting on UNICEF, then more than 60 million children won't go to school next year. So for every number where we are failing, there is one reason or different reason, and the summit is all about of tackling concretely this reason. Do not stay on the overall goal, but really dig deeper and go into the different experts of every goal we can work on. And I would like to underline as well that more than before, these goals are interconnected. And this is why it's very great coincidence that directly after the Doha summit, many people would go or will be delayed to go to Berlin, because the climate crisis is one of the other reasons why on some of these goals we are behind the goals for 2030. So fighting the climate crisis means also working on social justice, and working on social justice means also having preventive measures after a climate crisis hits. So again, I can only commend that at the summit, this topic is on a very, very important matter as well.
5 minutes left, so please go ahead. We'll try to cover everybody in here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Madam President, Madam Ambassador. My question is to Madam Ambassador. You sort of answered part of my initial question about the linkage between social justice and peace and security and the issue of Gaza. But if you can elaborate a little bit more on that, what are the linkages that are going to be made, and what are the socioeconomic issues? I mean, we've seen the education system being targeted in Gaza, with universities and schools being bombed. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, and what these linkages will be in the discussions during the summit?
So basically, I mean, the summit is an opportunity to address the 7 key commitments. Of course, poverty eradication, decent work, economic transformation, food security and health, digital transformation, climate, gender equality, financing for social development, and education, and the social component cross-cuts in many angles. Again, the summit is an opportunity to address the socio-economic situations in specific cases, and Gaza is one of them, of course. There are several engagements taking place to address that question. Again, the Doha political declaration that has been negotiated and thankfully has been agreed upon delegations here, and we are waiting for the moment for the official adoption on day 1 in Doha. The Doha political declaration has created the link, and I think this is the sort of the positive additions from Copenhagen to Doha is that emphasizing even closer how social justice cannot be attained in the absence of peace and security. This is very important angle. You cannot sustain a situation in a post-war unless you address the socio-economic aspects of the situation in the society. If you do not deal with it immediately and address the social health needs, educational needs, you cannot sustain a situation. And that's the best example for Gaza. Let me talk about education in Gaza. If you don't address education in Gaza immediately, you will not sustain the situation, because education has always been gives the stability element in any situation. So again, I think that's the highlight of the World Social Summit, is bringing together the different angles together, peace and security, human rights and development, and seeing how these three angles work hand in hand to sustain a situation, to address poverty, to address social integration, to address food security. You need to look at that. And yes, it is a shame that we have not been able to convene a summit in the last 30 years. But again, it's never too late. Doha will be the starting point. The Doha Political Declaration also creates a follow-up process, including the high-level review in 2031. So the summit will not be the end point at itself. It will be the starting point. And I think, again, it's great that it's coming hand in hand with the UN 80 initiative and the whole review of the system. I think this is an excellent moment to galvanize the support and the equipment and tools for the objectives of the summit to be implemented on the ground. And thank you.
Thank you. We have a lot of questions from the floor, but I think we only have time for one last one, and we kindly ask that this is a summit-related question. The gentleman in the back was the first one to raise his hand.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Madam Ambassador. This is Namo Abdullah with Rudao Media Network. In the spirit of leaving no one behind, will the summit address the plight of stateless and marginalized groups like the Kurds, the Druze in Syria and the broader Middle East? Thank you.
I think we had the similar question at the last press conference as well, so I can only repeat also what I said here. It's called Universal Declaration on Human Rights because it's universal. It doesn't have any footnote saying, but this is not counting for stateless people or people for one gender or one religion. And therefore also the right of life in dignity is a right for everybody, also for stateless people, no matter in which region we are talking about. Obviously, we are living in a real world, so obviously social rights are most of the time connected to a national state, and therefore also to access to healthcare, to social protections, to education. But this summit is also there for learning from each other. There are countries around the world where even without a passport, you have access to free healthcare. There are states around the world who say we give the right of education to every child. We have special schools, especially for refugee children, for example. We have a whole system here at the United Nations called UNRWA, which is providing not only education, but healthcare, social protection, not only in Gaza, as you all know, but also in many, many other countries, like in Syria, like in Jordan, and others. And again, this summit, as the dear ambassador has said, is not isolated. We just had another advisory opinion of the ICJ, underlining not only the access for humanitarian aid to Gaza, but also underlining the important role of UNRWA. We had an UNRWA debate here at the high-level week, and therefore also this issue is highly interconnected for the social summit, even though the social summit is focusing on the declaration as has been mentioned. But I would like to add as a last thought, as we're having many debates also in these halls here about peace and security, and your questions were related to it. Social justice is very hard to deliver on in wartime, obviously, but the other side is also true. Without social justice, there won't be lasting peace. And we know it from so many crisis regions. If people do not have employment, if they do not know where the kids go to school, if they have hunger, I always said that to all my German and European citizens. I mean, what would you do if you know that your child is starving? You would take your child and bring it somewhere where at least you could survive. So also the question of migration is heavily depending on the question whether we deliver on the SDGs and on the Agenda 2030. We know that terrorist groups all around the world recruit, especially in those villages or in those parts where people do not have any perspective at all. So therefore, social justice is the base for a better and safer and more secure world everywhere. And therefore, we are really thankful that you're here at the press conference with us today, but hopefully also delivering on the results of the summit, because we know bad news click 6 times better than good news, but the world definitely needs good news. So we're hoping that you're also there in Doha, and I'm thanking again also the host country for the great side events which we're having there.
Thank you so much. We are at time, but I wanted to offer Her Excellency any last thoughts before we leave.
Just to thank everyone, and please continue your engagement and your interest in the summit, and I look forward to seeing you in Doha. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For the full program of the summit, please visit the website. You can simply Google it, and you can check in all the press briefings that will happen during those 3 days as well. Thank you so much.